People who have been hurt and traumatized are usually the most successful people in the room because they're fighting against something so big and so powerful, and it's not ego, it's safety, and that's the loudest voice in you. What is the factor that is contributing to early mortality above all else, more than smoking and everything? I think it's being in these kinds of relationships. Living a life of invalidation, manipulation, emotional abuse, it messes you up.
Does a narcissist know that they're a narcissist?
Sometimes narcissistic people make higher salaries. Narcissistic people are overrepresented in leadership. Narcissistic people have more success in dating, particularly online dating. Narcissistic people in the first 6 months of a leadership gig are viewed as more effective leaders.
How do we set a boundary if someone has these tendencies, but they're really important to us? I want to bring up a friend, someone, when I guess you could say, entered this world. How do I say this? There's a lot of people that seem one way in social media. Sometimes you meet them. It's not always the same. But Dr. Ramani has always been amazing, such a special soul. And it's not really an opinion. She's the #1 narcissist expert on the planet. And the way that she unpacks the stuff and teaches it and shares about it, makes it applicable, and really gives us insight is actually second to none. It's amazing. And we're going to go really deep right now. And I do want to encourage you guys, when we do open it up for questions, to not hold back. Take the gloves off with a metaphoric jacket. Without further ado, guys, please welcome to the stage the iconic, dynamic, brilliant Dr. Ramani. How you doing?
I'm great, and I've already met so many wonderful people just like in the line at the bathroom and just standing out there. So if that's any sign of what's going to happen here, I think we're in great shape.
Any weird people from New York City?
I mean, that's why New York City's so fantastic, because
right.
It's all weird people.
That's
so
right.
Yeah. And I used to live here. In fact, when I was born, my parents lived right across the river. So you could see where kind of come right over a river, and here I am. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, New York City looks good on you.
Well, thank you so much. That's very wonderful of you. Thank you.
You guys ready to go in? Okay. The word narcissism, narcissist, gets thrown around a lot. Some people right away they're triggered. The word is triggering. Some people are like, oh, I don't know if that applies to me. I don't know if I've ever dealt with that or not. What is narcissism?
So narcissism is a personality style. Let's not call it a disorder, because that's just muddying the waters. So it's a personality style, and it's characterized by sort of a series of traits and patterns a person might have. It's low, inconsistent empathy. It is wrong to say a narcissistic person doesn't have empathy. I'm going to come back to that point in a moment, because it's what confuses everything. Arrogance, entitlement, an excessive need for validation and admiration. Like, all of us like to be told we're doing a good job, but this is constant. The whole relationship is you always having to pump them up. Nothing's coming back at you, but it's excessive need for that. It's a superficial, status-seeking kind of a style, pathological selfishness, difficulty controlling their emotions. Usually it's dysregulated, like yelling at other people and screaming at other people, or passive-aggressive and going silent on people. And so that dysregulation ends up controlling the relationship. And underneath all those traits, sort of the flip side of this is deep insecurity, very fragile ego, and a lot of shame. And it shows up in patterns like manipulation and gaslighting and betrayal and shifting blame on the other person in the relationship, and domination and power and control. So these are not healthy relationships, but we have a real problem here. All of those traits, even though they don't sound very pleasant, are associated with success in our culture. So these are often the people who are making all the money, running all the businesses, even people who feel might be an attractive spouse or partner or something like that. So the very thing we value many times, not all the time, not by a long shot, but many times can be associated with all this other stuff that you may not see until you're in it for a minute. And if you were raised by someone like this, it has forever shaped you to have this sense of, I'm not enough. I have to earn love. I'm not safe in relationships. How dare I succeed?
Wow. Where do we begin?
Yeah.
Okay. Couple things that I heard there. I'm glad you cleared this up. I'm actually processing this myself. So narcissists have empathy. Did I get that right?
Okay, they have variable empathy.
Okay.
If you catch a narcissistic person on a good day, where their needs are met, they're getting supply, maybe they got their promotion that day, maybe they flirted with someone at the gym, maybe they got a lot of money, maybe they got a new car. If you catch them on that day, you actually are with someone who actually seems empathic. And we read some things wrong as empathy, Craig. For example, generosity is a great example. We assume generous people are empathic. No, they're generous. It doesn't take that much effort to throw down a credit card. Okay? So just because somebody picks up the bill doesn't mean they have empathy. It means they just paid for dinner. Don't confuse the two. Ooh.
This is awesome. Okay, let's go deeper. Okay. Wow. Does a narcissist know that they're a narcissist?
Sometimes. I mean, again, Craig, when I got into this game, nobody talked about it, right? Now we're talking, you can't go on social media without seeing this content. You can turn on a video. It's the subject of so many TV shows and docs and all of that. Some do. Most don't. One of the key features, for me as a psychologist, one of the key features of narcissism is that the person doesn't have a lot of insight. So they'll actually walk around the world. A person with this personality will walk around the world saying, I'm a great guy. Why does everyone have a problem with me? Like, I'm just a great guy. I'm a great, generous guy. I listen to your problems. I'm a sweetheart. And you're like, now you think the UFOs are in your backyard. You're like, what? It's completely, it's, again, almost delusional. So there's a lack of, the biggest issue with narcissism is there's almost no awareness of how their behavior affects other people. They're very grounded in, I'm great. So if you have a problem, that's a you thing, not a me thing.
Anyone relating to this at all? Okay, seems like everybody. Wow. Okay, so it's funny because you mentioned success earlier, and I know that there are traits that are associated with success. So how do we distinguish that? Like, it almost seems like because to be successful is cool, that culture almost rewards narcissists.
100%. That's why we're in the mess we're in right now. I mean, we absolutely reward it. Narcissistic people make higher salaries. Narcissistic people are overrepresented in leadership. Narcissistic people have more success in dating, particularly online dating. Narcissistic people in the first 6 months of a leadership gig are viewed as more effective leaders. They got the pizzazz. They've got the zazazoo, right? The zazazoo doesn't last, but it draws people in. And
what's that word?
Zazazoo. Did I just age myself? I think people think I'm 1,000 years old. I think that's from the 1920s. I'm not that old. But it's that sizzle. It's that wow factor. And we're in a world where things are so appearance oriented, right? We're looking at images all the time. Narcissistic people are also rated as more attractive. They're more likely to go to the gym and be all that. Not to be healthy, but so people admire them.
Amazing. What is the one thing that most people tend to get wrong about narcissism or a narcissist?
That it's just vanity. It's just, some people even think it's self-love, right? They think of the old myth where the boy looks in narcissist looks at his reflection in the water and falls in love with his reflection. They miss the rest of the story, which is he ended up killing himself, but that's for another day. It's supposed to be a distressing state. But we think that it's just selfishness. So when people use the word, sometimes you're like, what's your problem? Like, so what if they're just selfish? And the other thing is like, well, if they're that, then they can change. Not so much. So if you're in this is probably not going to budge. Make your decisions accordingly. You ain't changing them.
Wow. That was pretty affirmative. Okay. Okay, it's funny because I'm asking the questions, but I'm also learning on the spot, and I'm afraid to make that. This is amazing. So, how does someone know if they're currently involved with a narcissist, either a romantic relationship, maybe a boss, an employee, a colleague? How do you know if you're dealing with a narcissist?
You know what's funny, Craig? I think what happens first is you start feeling sick and you don't know why. There's a little bit of dread, You're like, God, to see them, or I hear their car coming in the driveway. And then you feel like a terrible person. Because remember, it's not always bad days. This is what's unique about these relationships. Not every day is bad. All of a sudden on one day, if it's your partner or spouse, you go away to Hawaii for the weekend, you have great sex, you have a fabulous time, you're like, oh, I misread this relationship. And then Wednesday comes, you're like, no, I didn't. But now I feel guilty because we did have a nice weekend. So it's that disconnect. You might say, oh my God, my mother is such a B-word narcissist. And then she shows up and says, oh, sweetie, you're sick. I brought you soup. I got the kids. Don't worry about a thing. You're like, I'm the worst daughter. And then she starts commenting on your weight by Friday when your fever comes down. Right? You didn't lose that much weight, did you? No one's ever going to want you again. So it's that kind of, you get the good, you get the bad. You get the good, you get the bad. That process is called trauma bonding. Okay? And what happens in a trauma bonded relationship is a person's like, I feel guilty about wanting to leave. I feel terrified that this is going to end. There's nothing but confusion, but I think you feel sick before you know what you're in. And the reason I do what I do is so people have a place to get educated about this and don't think they're crazy. I think until the last 15 years, everyone in these relationships walked around either thinking they were the problem or that they were out of their minds. Once we gave it a name, people are like, oh, this is a thing. And then they lifted their head and they realized it was millions of people. That changed the game.
Yeah. This is amazing. Thank you for the way that you articulate this stuff. It's beautiful. Based on what you was describing as like trauma bonding and stuff like that, how many of you just, wow, so you remember a narcissist in your life? Or now maybe it's making a little bit more sense. Wow. Okay. So you mentioned sometimes it could be your mom.
Yeah.
How do we set a boundary if someone has these tendencies, but they're really important to us?
So let's talk a little bit about boundaries, because that word pisses me off. Okay? So let's say you're the one who's being abused in the relationship. Now you're the one being abused, you're tolerating attacks, you're being blamed for everyone, and now it's your damn problem to set a boundary? And it's not going to work. But we're continuing to blame Craig. Oh, Craig, you didn't set a boundary. How about you don't abuse me? Okay? So let's think of the paradigm that way. I always say boundaries are an inside job. Let's stop making it about like, well, you're always late. So if you're late again to dinner, that's not going to work for me. He's just going to keep being late just to mess with me if he's narcissistic. I'm not saying you are, sweetie. But you know what I'm saying is that, we keep saying like, well, if you want to come to my dinner party, you'll show up on time. They're not going to show up on time. Or they're going to turn around and say, why are you so selfish? Why are you so difficult? What's your problem? You're so rigid. So now when you try to set said boundary, the biggest danger in setting a boundary, you know what you've done? You played poker?
Sure.
Okay? You've just shown them your hand. You've showed them what matters to you. Can I curse?
Yes.
You showed them how to fuck with you. Oh. Okay? If they know being late is my issue, they're going to fuck with me. They're going to keep coming late. Why would I have that tough? I say to the narcissistic partner, I was cheated on in the past, so this really makes me insecure. Guess who's going to be flirting with everyone on social media and the server? And, it's so weird. My ex keeps calling me out. She still wants to get back together. They're going to go for your wound because our boundaries are set around our wounds. So don't give them that tell. Don't show it. If you're going to set a boundary, the way to think about it is there's something going on here that doesn't feel healthy. I need to keep eyes on it. So I'm going to give you an example. All right? Let's say you're in a relationship and somebody keeps making inappropriate comments. I don't know about your job. Why aren't you promoted? You don't make enough. Only losers work there. Da-da-da-da-da-da. The existing bad advice out there is like, set a boundary. Say, I don't want you to talk to me that way. Don't bring up my job. No, now they know. I really want to mess with her. I'm going to keep talking about her job. I'm going to share with you something that a patient of mine came up with, right? And we call it narcissism bingo, okay? And this is what we do. When for example, you're going to the family dinner, maybe even something at work, something with your partner, and you know all the things that they're going to do that might hurt you. Okay, you know them. Comments about your weight, comments about your work, interrupting, whatever's on the list, manipulating, gaslighting. I never said that. That never happened. You're so dramatic. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. Put it on your phone. Don't make a bingo card. That's probably a bit dramatic. But you have it on your phone, okay? And then you know what? In this lady's case, she said, we built the card in our therapy session. It was for Thanksgiving in her case. Terrible mother-in-law, da-da-da. She makes the list. Her and her husband took 2 separate cars to Thanksgiving that year because the deal she made with herself is once this lady hits 5, I'm out of there. And the thing is that whether she left at the end of the evening, before anything, this woman's going to get mad. So 5 things happened before dessert. And she says, she doesn't say bingo. She says, I actually have to work tomorrow. I got to get back. Her mother-in-law tore her a new one. Screamed, yelled, you're so unselfish. How could you leave my son to drive back by himself? But she was steadfast. She knew at 5, it was getting really uncomfortable for her, right? And she said, I felt such a sense of self-respect. And the funny thing is this woman kept doing number 1, number 2. She's like, by number 3, I had to hold self back from smiling. She was like, I'm gonna be out of here in 30 minutes, And so then number 5 happens, and she very calmly said, oh gosh, gotta get back. And she left, and she said it was such a freeing feeling. That boundary was an inside job. You gotta know what you're looking at, but don't set boundaries with people with these personalities. You're literally giving away your hand.
Wow. Give it up, guys. Give it up. That's amazing.
But Fred, think of it this way.
Yeah.
If you were negotiating a deal, would you give everything away while you're negotiating the deal?
Definitely
No,
not.
the key to negotiation is to shut up. Right? Make them show you everything. You shut the hell up. You don't lay anything. So we know this in business. Obviously, families, relationships are different, but unfortunately, narcissistic relationships are so transactional. You know what the best narcissism book would be? I'd like to think mine, but I'm not that narcissistic. Read a business book. Read a business book about how to negotiate with a jerk. You probably have everything you need to get through your relationship.
Are narcissists bad people?
I don't like the term bad people. I think here's a complicating issue with narcissism. It's a complex origin story for people who have these personalities. Adversity, trauma, neglect, detached caregivers. There are a lot of things, and sometimes even overvaluation. It's the little kid who's told, you're perfect, you can do nothing wrong, you're my son. And so that means you're perfect. No one's gonna ever give you shit because you're my son, so daughter. Okay, but you see what I'm saying? When you're told you're special all the time, it is an absolute terrible number to do on a kid, because by the time they're 19, 20 years old, they're gonna feel like the biggest imposter in the world, because they're gonna go in the world and they ain't so special. And they don't have the reserves to manage that anymore, but they were told they were special. That can even be a fast track to narcissism. I don't like it as a bad person, good person dichotomy. I think narcissism's complicated, okay? I have narcissistic friends. I am sure you have narcissistic friends, okay? I have narcissistic people in my family. I have narcissistic people in my past, and I have narcissistic people in my present, and some of them I really love, but my God, are they on a need-to-know basis? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can still show up as a compassionate person, but I also know they can only get in so deep. They can't know things about me. I can't count on them. I expect very little from them. Nice to have a few around for a party, but I don't think that they're bad people. Now, here's the trick to understanding narcissism. It's on a continuum. At the mild end of narcissism, you're talking about the douche on Instagram that keeps posting their breakfast and thinks we're supposed to be interested. Okay? They're like, look at me, I'm so great. I'm getting on a private jet. They're not really. There was one at the local airport and they're going up the steps. And there's a lot of this. Okay? There's that. And they're kind of very superficial. And you might go, this is the friend you might go to with a problem. You always take their calls. But the day you call them, they're like, dude, I'm going to the gym. Like, I don't have time for this right now. It's a selfishness, an immaturity. That's very different. I spoke with a member of your audience who was asking about dynamics like coercive control. This is different. At the far end of the spectrum, we're talking about exploitation. We're talking about coercion. We're talking about severe emotional abuse, in some cases, physical abuse. I might be more apt to use the bad person there, but I don't think somebody posting their breakfast and who's too busy to talk to you about your problems is a bad person. I think they're stunted. I think that they may not be their healthiest friend. I don't think you're a bad person. Then once we go far enough on that severity spectrum, we start tipping into psychopathy. And that's a whole nother machine. That's a whole nother beast.
So a good person can acquire narcissistic tendencies? No?
No. Personality gets baked in pretty much from birth to adulthood, right? So I want you to think of it as a Jell-O mold. right? If you take the Jell-O mold out of the moldy thing, too soon it just splats. It's just liquid on your plate. The human brain and personality. Personality, a lot of it happens in the frontal cortex of the brain. The last kind of inhibition and other elements, it's all up here, prefrontal. This is the last part to cook, especially in boys and men. Okay? So that's why we see more impulsivity, disinhibition, especially in young men. Somewhere between 25 and 30, this is cooked. We think of adolescence as ending at 18, not even close. 25. That's why 24-year-olds still behave like 16-year-olds, because their brain is still kind of there. And that's why when parents come to me, my 22-year-old, I'm like, slow down. Your 22-year-old's actually a 16-year-old. And when you think of that way, it helps. All 16-year-olds look a little narcissistic. Adolescents are supposed to be narcissistic. It's what their personality is still doing as they separate from their parents. So by the time someone hits 30, and it's an interesting philosophical question here, Craig, what is a good person, right? I mean, now we're opening up an entirely different Pandora's box that has spiritual and philosophical overtones. I know what I think a good person is, but that may not be a shared definition in this room. I look at traits like compassion, kindness, patience, ethics, empathy. Those are the things I look at when I think of a good person, right? I don't care if they have $1 in the bank or $1 billion in the bank. You show me those things consistently, it's a good person to me. Again, you may not agree, all right? That stuff, it's pro-social. So some people say, I don't know, is that a good person? It's so easy to just sort of run over them and steamroll them. They're a sucker. Okay, maybe the sucker is still a good person. So we don't acquire these traits later on. The only example I can give you, and I don't think this is narcissism. I'm a lot older than you, okay? So if somebody dropped $100 million on my lap tomorrow, it wouldn't change who I am, except you'd never hear from me again. Okay, that's it. I'm out. Bye. Where's Dr. Ramani? Nobody knows. She's scrubbed, okay? Me, my cat, my kids, it'll be like witness protection, except like my kids, a couple other people, right? But for many people, especially in their 30s, they very suddenly acquire a lot of power through money or a title or something like that. You can see the taking on of traits that could read as narcissism. You know what I'm saying? We'd call that more privilege and entitlement. I live in LA, okay? So I have actually an interesting client base that has included people who are big business leaders and, people who are big famous people and all of that. It's fascinating when the gloves come off and the shell comes off. So ordinary, it's actually kind of sad, right? They just drive a car that's worth everything I'll ever see in my life. That's all. They just have stuff. Some of them are, what I'm saying, are good people. And some of them, not so nice. They're very narcissistic. But that stuff was there before they ever became famous. Does that make sense? So I think privilege can make it so a person's a bit abrupt. They kind of rush out of a room. They expect a certain level of treatment. But if someone took them aside and said, nah, not cool, they might say, I apologize, I shouldn't have done that. And they'll quickly click back into that. So we have to be careful we don't confuse privilege and entitlement fully with narcissism. They're not nice traits, but they don't make someone a narcissist. After 30, you're not acquiring these qualities unless you've had a head injury. Like somebody gets bonked on the head, they could acquire traits that look like narcissism, like a central nervous system injury, a tumor, like some other sort of disease process in the brain can cause that change in personality. Some dementias can do that too. So those are much more rarefied situations.
I love the way you distinguish and articulate all this. And it's interesting because we're talking about business a lot. There are some spiritual giants in this room here today. And I know one of the things that we talk about as we ascend and have ambition and want to build big business and change the world is keeping our ego in check. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear how ego is connected to narcissism, and also when we're building something huge and we're really doing some pretty important, great stuff in the world, how do we make sure that we don't tap into any of those narcissistic traits and we keep ourselves in check? And can you build something so big and powerful without dipping your toe in the water to narcissistic traits?
So let's start with
that
the
was
word
a lot.
ego. There's a lot, and I got it. Right? It's like a multi-part essay question. I'm out of here.
You got me so excited.
Right?
Give it up for Dr. Ramani. You have me jazzed.
Ego, right? Ego isn't bad. Okay, so we got to stop giving ego a bad brand. Ego is that if we didn't have skeletons, we would be a pile of liquid and schmutz on the floor. We really would be, right? The skeleton our endoskeleton, as it were, is what keeps all this schmutz standing around and walking around. We need it, right? That's an endoskeleton. Ego, to me, when it's healthy, is a psychological endoskeleton. And healthy ego means we know who we are, we know our capabilities, we know our weaknesses, we know our vulnerabilities, and we recognize that there are people outside of us who are being affected by us. That's healthy ego. All day, all night. Love it, okay? Narcissism is unhealthy ego. It's not too much ego, it's unhealthy ego. It's ego at the cost of others. It's ego that is an exoskeleton, stuff and status and power and domination. Healthy ego is none of those things, right? So even sort of Buddhist and Hindu writings that talk about sort of the leaving of the ego, I think that gets more, and I don't want to get too deep into the sort of Eastern religion, weeds, but we talk about things like moksha and our physical body, right? And that there's a spiritual center to us, and the rest of this is just sort of window dressing, right? That's not what I'm talking about, okay? I think that's vocabulary at that point about, so I think healthy ego can be this authentic, healthy self that knows itself, all right? I told you a story upstairs, okay? I want all of you to listen to this because it comes to your point of building a healthy business. I think the danger of talking about this only in terms of narcissism and ego is we miss the flip side. Some of you in this room had narcissistic parents. Some of you had parents who loved you only conditionally, who might have even harmed you. So you learned that you were only lovable if you put up and shut up, if you gave in. As a child, you never got to experience safety. And I don't necessarily mean because you were physically abused. I mean because you couldn't be yourself, right? So I was telling Craig, my book, It's Not You, got on the New York Times bestseller list, okay? And that was...
What is it called?
It's Not You,
I want
okay?
everybody to
It's
know.
Not You.
Classic.
So my point, so I had spoken to an audience of business leaders back in November. And I said to them, look at this book. It's on the New York Times bestseller list, so it does not just make me the shit, right? Not really. Now, I'm very proud of the achievement, but it became, and I literally said to my team, come hell or high water, this book is getting on the list, but I don't have the money to buy my own book, so we're gonna have to actually make people buy this book. So for the next 6 months, you were part of that campaign. I was on here, I met your community and everything. Day and night, Christmas, my birthday, my kids didn't see me. Like it was all, I had to get this done. It got done. But when I look back, I thought, okay, got done, very proud of it. But it was so obsessive for me because I was trying to heal a wound. You're not enough, and you're only going to be seen if you do something important enough to make you seeable, to make you lovable, right? Getting on the New York Times bestseller list felt less like an achievement and more like an attempt to get psychological safety in the world. Ooh. Okay? I want all of you to dig deep into yourselves and look into some of your deepest achievements. I wonder how much of this was simply so you could be seen, cherished, and loved. There was a little 5-year-old girl who desperately was trying to get the attention of the adults around her. And at almost the age of 60, did this thing. You know what? It's ironic. Those adults didn't notice a damn thing. People said, aren't you proud of your daughter? And those adults said, what? And it no longer mattered. The monkey was off my back. But it wasn't about ego. It was about safety. And so did getting the book on the list lead me to feel a little more safe? Ironically, yeah. Because it got the monkey off my back. Because that lack of safety was now something the child part of me was carrying. It's no longer real. These people have no longer power over me. I take care of myself. I do my own thing. But here's where the story takes an interesting twist. I talked to some other people who had written books since, in the years after. Tell me, Dr. Ramani, how'd you get your book on the list? And I said, I'd be happy to tell you. No, share you exactly the strategy. And I laid it out step by step, and they looked at me like, girl, you're high. I am not doing all that. How did you? They said, that's going to take all my time. I said, yeah. And they said, no, I want a balanced life. I want my weekends. I want my evenings. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not a thing. And they said, no, balance is more important. I gave that advice to 4 people. None of the 4 took it. And guess what happened? None of their books made the list. I wish I could have said, see, if this was a real TED Talk, I'd say, and all their books made the list, so you should seek out balance. No. People who have been hurt and traumatized are usually the most successful people in the room because they're fighting against something so big and so powerful, and it's not ego, it's safety, and that's the loudest voice in you. Okay? And if you have been raised like this and you've been through this, your life becomes a crusade to, I am going to show you I matter. And that's how you're building all this ridiculously impressive stuff you're all building. But at some point, you gotta let that terrified child in you know, you did good and I got you. You don't owe anyone anything. Please take that from here today.
It's so interesting because we were talking about this idea between wholeness and lack when I was speaking before you came up. And everything that you just shared reminds me of just that. Because lack outsources. I need this to feel safe, or I need this to feel worthy. But just being able to go, you got this, I'm proud of you. You're good as you are. And also, wouldn't it be nice if? That's a whole different consciousness. Is that kind of, we're talking about wholeness?
Yeah, when I'm talking about wholeness, like you're talking about sort of the fully developed adult self, right? We're no longer responding to this primal voice of like, I need to be safe, I need to be safe. Because there's a word we use in psychology called agency, right? If we're always responding to safety and fear, we can build incredible things, but we're going to wear ourselves out. But when the moment comes when we're like, I understand where some of this drive comes from, and I'm gonna access this, but I can also take a step back, I can care for myself, I can look at this more wholly, then we can get that balance, that wholeness, as you say. But I gotta tell you, Craig, a lot of people do the empire building when they're in some of their most traumatized states.
Does that make it wrong?
Doesn't make it wrong at all. I think my concern is people getting burned out and exhausted, and honestly, not looking at the incredible things that they have created. Because when people go through these relationships, and they think they take a moment to even look at what they've created, they're terrified that someone's going to take it away. The parent's going to say, who cares, son? That's not that big a deal. In my day, we did this. I could have done 10 times more if I had all the opportunities you have. Or the ex-spouse saying, oh, God, whatever, you need so much attention. So there's a fear, there's a desperation to still say, look what I've created. And then there's still that fear of, if I stick my head out too far, it's going to get lopped off.
Yeah, amazing. I want to do something weird. I want to open it up real quickly, but I want to just ask you off the cuff, and this is probably a Pandora's box, not to go too far into, but is spirituality something that's important to you?
To me, yes. Yeah, very much so.
Are you open to sharing what that looks like?
Yeah, so I was raised in a traditional Hindu family, okay? And it was, and my parents immigrated so long ago that there was really not a way to do it outside of the house. So Hinduism is very much a religion practice in the home, right? The shrine. And my mom, who passed suddenly this July, but I carry her spirituality very much part of our lives. And so I think for me, even the narcissistic folks, but I think it's buried under so much stuff, we're never going to get to it. There is this true, again, this energetic force inside of everyone. That's the piece, again, in Hinduism. We call it Moksha. It's the energy that goes forward. All the rest of this is just, it's nonsense. Like those of you who are Buddhist in your focus, we talk about Maya, which is the illusion of the material world. So I believe within everyone there's this extraordinary spirit that's gotten butchered by this world, that has expectations. If everyone could be seen as they are, I mean, the human potential would actually almost blow us up. I mean, most people have been limited by these conditions of worth. You need to do this, you need to be this, you need to look like this. And it's not just parents, it's social media saying you need to have this car, you need to have this face, you need to look 20 when you're 60, you have to look 50 when you're 100, you have to live to you're 140 years old. And so much of the religious practice I was brought up in was, how do you stay in a moment? How do you stay in your body? And our bodies carry all this truth, and the disconnect between here and this is the source of half the problem. So for me, it's very much that I believe that there's insane amounts of healthy, untapped, gorgeous health and potential in people that has been blocked by these conditions of worth or by the insecurities of narcissistic people who are being given the keys to the kingdom and telling everyone else, like, I'm going to step on your heads so you're this small and I can be this big. A healthy person in a healthy relationship You can succeed, I can succeed, and it's fine. In a narcissistic relationship, the other person has to be down so the other person can be up. There's no shared success. There's no shared power, if you will.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the word power doesn't matter. So that's what I believe. It's that everyone has this capacity to, all of us, everyone, city, everyone has this part of us. Now the most messed up people out there, you're just never going to get to it. There's just too much of that darkness around it. It's too buried. It's almost like an archaeological site that we don't have the tools to get to.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Pulling back the curtain. And yeah, give it up, guys. And it's funny, you mentioned something. We live in a world right now that celebrates, like you said, people that are 70 looking 25, spending all this money in longevity and biohacking. And to the extent I understand why someone would want to do that for the right reasons.
Sure.
But there's so many people are so keen on how they look compared to what they are. Correct. I imagine it's narcissistic.
I think that if a person, listen, I've sat in front of enough longevity conferences where like, if you eat exactly this and you sleep exactly that and you do exactly this, and I'm like, you have no one in your life, clearly, if you're able to do all of this. You know what I'm saying? It's this trade-off, right? Somebody's like, I'm going to eat my kale at 4:30 in the morning, and at 4:40 I'm going to go do this, I'm going to meditate for this man. By the time I'm a caregiver of an elderly parent, I've got 2 kids, I've got a business I'm running, I've got some other family members with stuff. By the time I get through that checklist, kale, like I'm lucky that I've picked up a brown banana and a Diet Coke. You know what I'm saying? So it's this, I think that these unrealistic standards, but I will tell you this, that whole morning was driven by compassion. You know, is the older person, or is someone checking in on them, or am I checking in on them? Have I checked in on the patient? I'm not saying I'm some kind of damn saint or anything like that. What I'm saying is it's in alignment with value. And what I really believe, and this is where I'm kind of sick of this whole longevity biohacking world, is it's not a living in alignment with values. Unless a person's value is I want to live to be 150 years old, to what point everyone you know is going to be dead. There's no consideration of other human beings. I don't want to be the last one standing. I don't want to watch all my friends and my sister and everyone die. I kind of like to go in the middle of the pack. I just want someone in the room when I die, you know? And so it's someone at the funeral. If you go last, who's going to show? And so that's but I think that the concern is, and I'm going to be very frank with you guys, if somebody asks me, what is the factor that is contributing to early mortality above all else, more than smoking and everything, I think it's being these kinds of relationships. Living a life of invalidation, manipulation, emotional abuse, it messes you up. It screws with corticosteroids, it screws with neurohormones, it screws with neurotransmitters. In my community, thousands of people are going through these narcissistic relationships. I want you to take a guess. Okay, so I'm telling you now, the rate of autoimmune illnesses in the population is 3 to 5%. Okay? Tell me what the rate of autoimmune illness is in my community of people who are survivors.
What? 50.
10%?
80%.
80.
80%. They get cancer, they don't get better. They get ill, it goes faster. They get ill, nobody cares for them. So you've got to understand that, honestly, stick your tail up your ass, get these people out of your life. I'm sorry I'm doing this.
Right? Nice. This is awesome. I'm just taking it in the moment. This is great. She's awesome. You're the best.
Says the woman who drinks Diet Coke. It was open.
I want to do something off the cuff.
You know what? I love the kale, but like the kale, you can't have the kale and a narcissistic marriage to think you're going to live a long time. Like, drink the Diet Coke, get rid of the kale, get rid of the husband, and your potato.
This is amazing, guys. I want to do something interesting. I want to bring us together as a community here. I'm a huge advocate for community, what we're doing here. Dr. Ramani has her own community. I think it's the most important thing. And so I'd love to just open it up real quick and just see, maybe a couple people could share on what Dr. Ramani shared today, what resonated, what created an aha, what you learned, And if you're open to sharing it, I'm sure that would inspire someone else to maybe be vulnerable as well. Okay. Yes, you. Can we get our mic? Is that possible?
Yeah. Dr. Ramani, 7 years ago, I read audiobooks. I watched all.
Good to know someone.
I watched all your YouTubes. I've taken notes. I've journaled. You helped me bring a level of understanding and insight to a very painful on inside years. And to a narcissist whom I share 4 children with. And with all the information that I have, with all the insights that I have, with all the, even sitting in silence with what I've taken in, and 7 years later, I still get triggered. I still feel trapped. I feel like I can't break free completely from it. And I think part of it is because I have children with this person, and he's kind of my co-parent, and I'm always torn between, but he's their father. He's their God-given father. And I'm torn between pushing them to have a relationship with their father, and then being like, he's gonna fuck him up like he fucking killed me. You know, I'm constant battle in my head. And then I realize that I'm still fighting battles, scrubbing words and behaviors and manipulations and betrayal. So many, 6, 7 years later, I'm still every day consciously having to scrub that off my being so I can feel free. And I have moments where I feel free. And then I have moments where I feel I'm still trapped.
First of all, thank you.
My question.
Give it up.
Yeah, your question.
My question is, all the work. I literally think that 10 words for years, and I refused to let it see my story. And I wanted to be better for my children, and I did the work. And I watched all the things. Do you ever break free completely?
So let's break that down.
What is the remedy? Because
There's,
like you said,
there's
I
no
would
remedy.
pick.
Let's move it off.
All the
No
things.
remedy.
I want to die. Like you said,
no
die.
more-
I've
there's
been
no-
sick for years.
There's no remedy. So let's break out of that way of thinking, okay? I want you to think that there's no cure. See, first of all, I want to go back and try to remember as many things as you said here,
I don't
okay?
give a shit about him.
No, we don't get, but
I agree.
I'm saying for you, there's no, when we say remedy, we almost feel like we're gonna have this lifted off our shoulders, right? Let's talk a little bit about how trauma works. I'm gonna go to the earlier part of your question. I'm still being triggered. Of course you're still being triggered. This trauma system we have in our body it's perfect. It's really well designed. It is designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to keep you alive. That's it. That's what it does. It's not to keep you happy. It's not to keep you satisfied. It's not to keep you successful. It's to keep you alive. So it overcorrects. It's like having an ADT system on your house that goes off if a moth flies by the front door, right? It would drive you nuts, but no one's getting into that house, are they? Right? So your ongoing triggering. Number one, this person's still in your life. I'm guessing some of your kids might still be minors. Okay, so some of your kids are still minors. The threat isn't gone. Think of somebody who developed PTSD in a war. They come home from the war. They're no longer sitting in Vietnam or Afghanistan or some other place. They're not in those places anymore. They're sitting here, home, theoretically safe. And they're still jumping out of their skin when a car backfires, when a helicopter flies by, when a door slams, right? And they're not in those places anymore. Okay? Why? Because that trauma system's keeping them safe. This is the exact poor person has to keep commuting back to Afghanistan and come back every week. Why are they solving that trigger? Because the body held it. In your case, you're doing the equivalent of commuting back and forth into the war zone. Okay? So the threat is always there. Number 2 piece here. Okay? So the triggering is happening on an ongoing basis in some ways because you're still having to dance with the threat. Okay, so keep that in mind. And so things like grounding exercises, mindfulness, breathing, all of that, that would matter. Number 2, you don't need to turn their dad into a hero. You just can't talk badly about him. That's it, full stop. You don't have to say your dad's a great guy. You just can't speak badly. You might say, why? That's not fair. No, it's not fair. But your children get messed up when you're their safe person. They still have to attach to their dad, okay? And if you, their safe person, is making the person they have to attach to unsafe, now you're a confusing person and their body feels abandoned by you, okay? So it's almost as though you either don't say anything, or when the kid says, gosh darn it, why does he have to go to dad's house, and say, what's going on? Like, how can I help you with this? Or they come back and say, Dad's always yelling, he's always so mad. Then you don't say, oh, that dad of yours, he's got a temper. You say things like, it's a funny thing, grown-ups are worse at regulating their emotions than kids. And if your grown-up can't keep their emotions together, that's not a you thing, that's a them thing. You see what I'm using language like grown-up, or adult, not your dad, okay? There's that piece. But what about this last piece, which is what's the remedy? How do I get out of this prison, okay? The prison is, how do I feel fully free of this? I want to share with you something that a collaborator and a friend, and I think one of the greatest voices in trauma out there, a guy named Dr. Gabriel Monte, has said. It's such a wise insight he shared with me recently. He said, Ramani, there's no pain-free path. There's no path without pain. And this is where people get stuck. They're like, there's got to be a way to get out of this that doesn't hurt. I'm like, no, you get out of it. I talked with someone in this audience. It's post-separation abuse. It's lawsuits and anger and rage and stalking. You stay in it, and it's self-abandonment and emotional abuse. So neither of these paths are good ones, right? So what you did was so ridiculously courageous, because all the things you faced, you still made the choice for freedom, to give your children a different model, that people don't stay in relationships where they're being crushed. That was powerful. Now, that doesn't mean that people who stay are cowardly or foolish. They have had a different calculation in their decision, right? You're in this room today. There is a very, very strong community-seeking part of you. So it's not, now all is not lost. You're here. That's you. You came into this room. And there's parts of you that still feel trapped, mostly because you still got to interact with this person. But when you realize that this you, the you that's in this room, that's the part you're kind of trying to muscle up. Because she is authentic and she is aware, but I don't want you to have unrealistic expectations about where you can take this. You show up as the best person, the best, safest parent that you can with your kids, and by and large, they're slowly going to learn you're safe, you're a place they can land, but it's going to be a bumpy ride with them. Your kids are going to be anxious because their dad is scary. I'm not going to sugarcoat that part for you, right? There is no pain-free path. So sometimes just that realistic, radical acceptance, awareness, expectations is enough to get us out of an unrealistic belief, because then we feel like we're failing, right? The fact that you get up, the fact that you devoted time to this for you, the fact that you keep showing up for your kids, and the fact that you made that painful decision to step out, these are shown as such amazing strengths. The prison can last a long time. But then in a way we often say, how often do I have the key in my hand? Can I stick my head out and say, okay, I can step in, I can step out? But listen, there's going to be a point where you have less interaction with him. But for now, pay attention to how much you don't abandon.
I really have interaction.
That's great.
My thing is that I was married for 25 years.
Yeah, that's a long time
Well,
in a
long
kind of
time.
setup. Yes.
And I feel like over the course of those years, specifically the last decade or so, really chipped away at like my sense of self.
Yes.
And made me believe that I'm crazy and all the things.
And you're
every
not.
single character
Right.
person. And I'm fully aware of all this.
Good.
I've done all the research you can begin to fathom. And I still feel like that it's almost been a conditioning.
It is a condition. Still, he hasn't
But
feel.
I'm also sometimes where I just really want to bring, I feel like I can't fully come into my power and be that thing inside of me that I know wants
But
to
if-
come out, because I'm this, someone that is so fucking destroyed.
If you come out to your full power, though, there's danger in that too.
And I, as much as you see, you keep we use the word think too much. The other day I had a client who's being severely narcissistically abused. She must have said "I think" 75 times in the session, and every time I tried to bring it to "I feel," I think. We can research the hell out of things, right? But this is the feel. It's getting into this stuff that sometimes doesn't even have word to it. But part of it is, I want to come into my own power. I think I want to come into my power. You come in your power is actually your body is saying, girl, that's dangerous. Please don't do it. Okay? And so, and it's not using words, right? It's this, I need to stay small, like I said, so I don't get my head lopped off. That's what it is. And that awareness that this is a safety response. I'm not going to get too big, or I'm going to get, it's like the eye is going to be on me, can't get too big, and you realize that's safety. Then you can work on compassion for the self rather than, I want to get into I need to get into my own power, which feels like you're challenging yourself instead of caring for yourself, which for 25 years you won't. So it's a twist in thinking. Instead of power, think about it as care. Because I'm doing this to be safe. Most people who've been through long-term narcissistic marriages or raised by narcissistic parents have had to learn to fully abandon themselves. Self-abandonment becomes how you attach. Silencing ourselves, suppressing ourselves, abandoning ourselves, then we can have a relationship, right? So that means coming into ourselves means we're going to be alone, rejected, or frankly in frank danger. So the body pulls back. No, don't do that. And so you feel almost a mysterious pullback.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for opening up.
Guys, just for the sake of time, I'm sure everyone wants a piece of her. Maybe she'll hang out for a little bit, but I want to take two more and let's just try it. I know it's very bold and it will stop, so I just want to be delicate how I say this. But let's just try and keep up like short and sweet so she can answer a couple and then we'll go on to the next thing. Time. Just want to give it a like.
Hi, thank you so much for bringing awareness to this topic. I think you've opened a can of worms for a lot of people, obviously, but also a path to healing. So you talk a little, we talk a lot about the overt, arrogant, dramatic, attention-seeking narcissists, but what about those who aren't so obvious, who are the victim at any piece of feedback, passive-aggressive, and so that's one part because the process is so different because the I'm crazy part is so different, asking for a friend. And and also, why do we attract these people into our lives, whether they're overt or covert? Why do we attract these people into our lives? What's our makeup that draws that?
I'm going to address your second question. You don't, first of all, you attract them because you're attractive. Okay, narcissistic people do not want to spend time with you who don't up their brand.
Right.
So let's take a moment and say, I'm attractive. Something about me, whatever it is, the way I look, the way I carry myself, the people I know, into my intelligence, they are not slumming. That is not a good look for a narcissistic person. So if you've drawn one in, you had some zazazoo. I love you also, using that word. You have that. So I think everyone thinks like, do I have a sign around my neck that says sucker? No, you have a sign around your neck that says all that, gorgeous, exciting. That's what they were drawn to, okay? It's almost like a parasitic power grab. And your power might be your youth, it might be your beauty, your intellect, whatever it may be, okay? That's number one. So stop thinking that because this is more self-blame. I drew this really harmful person. No, you're attractive. That's what it was. And then what happens though? There are things in our history that can keep us stuck in these relationships. Having been a victim of or having been a survivor of trauma, having been a survivor of abuse, having gone through these relationships even in adulthood in the past, history of adversity in childhood, being optimistic. Being optimistic is sort of a bit of a suck because you're like, everyone can change and everyone has light inside of them and I just gotta love them harder. Don't do it. Don't do it. Meaning you just, I wear my pessimism very big and it has gotten me out of many a jam. So the optimism, being forgiving. I'm going to forgive everyone because that's holy. I mean, I'm going to tell you now, God's job is to forgive, not yours. What if the building crumbled? And that's going to get that. But All of those things are what keep us stuck. The best parts of us are what keep us stuck in these relationships. Our empathy, our compassion, our kindness, our belief in second chances, loving this person. And then, of course, there's safety and attachment too. Now let's go to the second part of your question. It's not always arrogance, entitlement, a swagger, charm, charisma, confidence. Sometimes it's victimhood, being aggrieved, always being angry, always being irritable, blaming you for why things in their life didn't work out, being passive aggressive when they don't get their way, right? That's not so shiny, right? Those grandiose folks are actually kind of fun for a while. Like, they're like, let's take everyone out for dinner. And whereas the vulnerable, and these people are more passive and victimized, the vulnerable narcissistic folks will say, why the hell do I need to take your jerk of a brother-in-law and pay for dinner? He's just a blah, blah, blah. And the grandiose person's like, let's just buy dinner for everyone in the restaurant because I need everyone to love me. It's kind of a better game, right? But in the vulnerable case, the challenge is there's often failure to launch, there's sadness, there's social anxiety. You feel like they can't tie their own shoes sometimes. So you may feel pity, grief, and guilt. If you think empathy is sticky, try those things. Because now you're like, I feel so bad. Oh, what are they gonna do if I leave them? They cry, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. You know what? And then some might even make more leveled up threats, like I'm gonna hurt myself if you do something, right? And so now you feel like I can't go. I feel terrible, they can't tie their own shoes kind of thing. So the process of disconnecting from this is not only more confusing, because it doesn't feel like grandiose, like this person's gonna be fine. A grandiose narcissist already has their new person waiting in the wings. You leave, they're dating this person the next day, and they claim, it's a coincidence, I met this person the day after my divorce. Did you? Yes. Okay? But in the case of this, these are people who for a long time, and many times people not only might have a partner like this, they may have a parent like this, particularly a mother like this. This is the form of narcissism that shows up in mothers. I did so much for you, but I guess now, bring it now, let's go.
Water.
Yeah.
You didn't bring me a glass of water.
Or like, oh, well, I guess who has time for an old lady? I did so much for you. I give up everything. I give up my career for you, but I understand. I wouldn't want to spend time with me either. I understand. Vacation. What is that? Jamaica. Yes, Jamaica. You have your life. You have your life, and you have to get your hair done. Yeah, no, that's more important to me. I got this dementia that might come someday. So you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna go gray. Like, it's not that you want to spend time with mom. It's just you just want it to end. You want her to shut up. Okay? So then what happens is it's this constant surrender to shut the person up. It's still self-abandonment. The different burden you carry with a malignant or grandiose narcissist, it's more of almost sometimes even a fear. Fear of either their malignancy or fear of that they're moving on to a very happy future without me. With a vulnerable narcissist, it's just you feel bad. And so you give in because you feel bad. I find for most people, the process of detaching and disengaging from a vulnerable narcissistic relationship is much, much more difficult, other than the malignant narcissistic relationships, which feel dangerous to leave. It's different kinds of patterns, but it can make, especially with a mother, as that person goes into older of life, it feels like the caregiving burden of, from Mount Olympus. It's awful.
Oh.
The iconic Dr. Ramani. I could have said it on the news. Number one, I admire you. I love the way that you showed up today. Meeting you in person I didn't even get better from having a virtual relationship. You're amazing. I love the work that you're doing in the world. That's so meaningful. And the way that you share things today, you can see that there's tears, which is really special. I know that everyone wants a piece of her, would probably love to go deeper. For the sake of time, can't with everybody. Are you sticking around?
I'll stick around, yeah.
Did you bring your book?
Did I bring? I didn't bring.
We're gonna be giving away some books. But also, highly recommend grabbing them. Support. Her book's amazing. I would even buy a second one for a friend or someone that that you evaluate. She's gonna stick around for the sake of time. We're gonna take a 3-minute break. Then we're gonna bring on A-Top, but real quickly, I know that everyone in this room wants to go deeper. What's the best way for them to explore what you're up to, go deeper, and stay more involved in your movie?
There's a lot of ways, as you had mentioned. There's a YouTube channel, there's books. So there's that stuff that you can take at your own pace. We have the healing program for people who've been through these relationships, which is an intensive experience where we have workshops and question and answer sessions and a remarkably robust community. We have something called the Dr. Ramani Network, which is weekly shows where we either have experts or just me answering people's questions. We have live programs, live retreats where people come together for a few days or a week. You can find all of that on my website. So lots of different.
And right there, guys, you could just click that barcode.
Oh, there's a barcode. What's that?
Because you were also on Spiritually Hungry.
Oh, we
I was
have some good friends.
Yes, I was. Yeah, so I had the opportunity to have some great conversations. So you can find me lots of different places, and yeah. So
Any final nugget that I didn't ask you? Anything that you just want to leave with the room?
pay attention to when you find yourself self-abandoning just to be connected to another person. Love means you show up as a whole person. When you feel like the transaction is you have to quit yourself to be seen, I don't know if it's narcissism, but it's a really bad track, and it's going to silence your voice and limit people from seeing the light inside of you. So I hate to say please stop, but at least catch yourself. When you're doing that, it's become such a natural way to attach. Let's stop the self-abandoning.
You're amazing. Thank you for everything. Give it up for Dr. Ramani Durvasula.